There we are. Hey, everybody. It's Crystal and Stacy from Juniper and Lace Events. So if anybody, when you come in and you see this, do a shout out, let us know that you're there. And I'd love to know where you're coming from. So Stacy is a person that I've worked with, we've worked like 3 times
for a couple
together.
Years together.
For a couple years.
Yeah.
The first time I met Stacy was at a coffee shop here, and she had brought a couple with her that was interviewing me to see if I was appropriate for the wedding day, and I ended up being the appropriate one. Yes,
Good
I passed the interview.
You're
yes.
very appropriate.
Yeah, and it was one of those. It was one of those weddings that the site was fabulous.
Incredible. Still one of the best we've done.
Oh my gosh.
Northern Michigan. Yeah. With a view of Lake Leelanau, just to paint a picture for you, a view of Lake Leelanau, like from high up and kind of over the terrain of forested terrain, and lovely sunset in the evening. It was stunning. It was a private property, so yeah, you all don't get to rent it and get married there, but it was beautiful.
It was really interesting how there were so many different places to set up in that. And did you plan every different spot that was in there, or did you delegate that to other people, or it was all they said? Because she was a very like everything had to go through you. And remember, I had trouble with that because I like to connect with my couples, and it's like she wouldn't let me. Which was nice because I went through you. It was that was great.
We connected quite well. I would say, no, you and I share a common passion for what we do, in the sense of we both like to connect with our clients. So we did. I have a very collaborative approach in my planning. So the bride and groom and I collaborated very closely on creating all of those spaces that we used for the ceremony, moved them across the way for cocktails on the lawn with little folk music, mandolin playing, and then moved them back to the tent for the reception. It was stunning. It
was really pretty. And she was pretty too.
Gorgeous, yes.
And he looked good too. But
you know, I'm a gown. I like the gowns.
Roger,
you did a great job too. But you know, something that was important to both Rhea and Raj at that time when we were searching for an officiant is someone who would handle this ceremony beautifully and thoughtfully and make that part of their day very meaningful. So they're very intentional about the, interviewing and making sure they got someone and you passed the test.
And one thing that was nice about her too is she was very clear about what she wanted, because a lot of brides don't know. And like when I talk to them, I always tell them, I'll give you as much help as you want or back off. It's really up to you. But I try to say, you don't have to write the ceremony. That's my job. But some of them do anyway.
Good. Yes, very true.
So that's kind of hard. So can tell us a little bit about how you got into this and how you started being a wedding planner.
I mean, it's I'll try to keep it brief, but go all the way back to one winter when I just needed cash, and my sister was like, hey, I'm doing this part-time catering job. Do you want to get in on that? So it was like a weekend gig, catering. But the event scene and the wedding scene really captivated me. So it was cash, but then it was also like more than that. It was the camaraderie of the vendors and, cleaning up at the end of the night and just serving people who were having a really great time. In that particular spot, we just saw them for the reception, but just loved the energy that was there and just the meaning behind that celebration. So, moving from there, kind of worked at a hotel and just got the hospitality side of a hotel that did weddings. And then, I went out to Colorado for free skiing, landed a job in a venue that did weddings and, worked in their kind of conference office for a while until I got into the wedding position, and it really just kind of took off from there. So I did wedding venue sales at 2 different properties, and then joined up with a wedding planner in Colorado, worked destination weddings out there for 3 years, and then came to Michigan and was a little doubtful that there were destination weddings here, but there are.
There's Jacqueline. Hi, Jackie.
So, Jacqueline.
Now, it seems like Colorado would be a place that would have a lot of wedding places like we do here in Michigan.
Very much.
So were you really busy all the time?
Absolutely, yeah. And they had a great winter wedding, market out there too. People like to go up into the mountains and get married in the winter. We were planning weddings in Denver and Boulder, and then up in the mountains in Vail and Breckenridge, Winter Park area, one out in Aspen. So definitely got around. And Colorado is a destination state. People love the mountains. So yeah, we were doing a lot of beautiful, beautiful weddings out there.
Did you notice a difference between the kind of ceremonies and the kind of weddings that were done out in Colorado as opposed to the style that is done in Michigan? I mean, is there a Michigan style?
That's a good question. I'm probably still discovering that. To summarize the Colorado style, Colorado is the West, and people are drawn to the West for different reasons, but it's kind of this very adventurous recreational state. So the couples that we worked with out there were often drawn to that, just being in nature, which is common with Michigan, Northern Michigan, but being in nature, immersed in that, and then also just kind of this sense of independence. It's West, like the people out there embody it very well. So ceremonies, the requirement in Colorado is a couple can marry themselves. They don't need an officiant.
Really?
Yeah. So very, that we saw a little bit of that, but usually there was a friend who didn't. There's no requirement for being ordained, so you could have your friend or uncle or grandpa or anybody perform the ceremony. So we definitely saw a lot of diversity in who was doing the ceremony and the officiating out there. So yeah.
Do you find that people that are new to being an officiant, or like, can you tell a difference between someone who's ordained online as opposed to a professional officiant? Or what's the,
Yeah, that's a good question. I wouldn't draw the line at, they were ordained online. This is their first wedding and they're bombing it. Some people are just naturally gifted or have developed the skill of public speaking and communication and can do that well, and they pick up the ordination thing along the line. And then there are other people who, there was an officiant that comes to mind who did officiate kind of smaller weddings out in Colorado, but was actually not a great public speaker. And so charged for her services, but, people who were doing theirs for the first time and were not even ordained maybe brought a little bit more life to that experience. So now generally speaking though, people who like yourself who are accustomed to doing it and are doing it as a profession are more practiced at it, can roll with the situation better, and then have kind of a command of what needs to happen and how to personalize that to the couple. So
since you like you started in 2016 here, but you've been doing wedding planning for how long?
Great question. I've been in the industry for about 10 years. Venue sales first and then wedding planning. So 6 years in the planning.
So have you noticed a difference between the kinds of ceremonies that people wanted when you first started as opposed to what they want now?
Again, because half of my time as a planner has been in Colorado and then half of it is moving to Michigan, it might be hard to say like over that 6 years, there's been a shift. But thinking back to when I got married, which is 21 years ago now, I definitely, and the culture that I came from, most weddings I attended, even my own, were in kind of this church setting, more traditional, and having a traditional officiant, person officiate that. And we definitely still see some of that. The nature of destination weddings is such that people are going to a place that they don't live most often, and wanting usually to get married outside. So it's it's very common in my world, but would be considered untraditional. So, they're getting married outside. There's usually some kind of connection to the place that they're in. And I think that as I think about ceremonies now as compared to when I got married, I think there's just more emphasis on making that very personal and very authentic to the couple. So not quite as traditional in content, if that makes sense.
Does that kind of include people wanting theme weddings? Like I get on Offbeat Brides sometimes. I don't know if you've ever seen those guys, or 100-layer cake and some of those other wedding websites. And sometimes people have like just bizarre, I mean, to me they're bizarre. They might not be to anybody else. Yeah, they would be authentic to them. Do you do very many of those kinds of weddings? Or?
We don't as a company. I think we draw a different kind of perspective in our clients. The marketing that we do is not your traditional themed wedding, but themed in the sense of Northern Michigan, relaxed, elegant, natural vibe. So we're playing very much on the location in our weddings and making them lovely, but not necessarily themed like we're talking about, which are fun. They're very fun. We would certainly do them, but our marketing tends to draw a different vibe.
I wonder if they have more of those kinds of weddings, like in big cities, like Chicago or Detroit might have more, where we're in Colorado, and there's certain areas of the country that it seems like people would be more defined by their surroundings, and would probably, we have a lot of people that are athletic that are drawn to this area. I guess Jackie, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. People would be drawn to this area because they are, very nature oriented.
Very much.
And the whole thing about trying to get people to enjoy winter weddings was such a brilliant thing that you did. You and Jen were the head of that.
It was exciting, yes.
It was very exciting. Was that hard to put together? I'll explain that to you in just a second. Stacy will explain it to you in just a second.
So Crystal's referring to the winter wedding giveaway that we did, which started out as a style shoot and became this big giveaway experience to a couple who wanted to get married in the winter. And so Mari and Tyler, we planned that for almost a year. Mari and Tyler got married in January, actually, a month or so ago. It was not hard to put together in the sense that it felt very much like putting together a wedding that it was similar to what I do as a job. So but different in the sense that the vendors such as yourself who got on board were doing it for free. We're offering their services for free, and so different level of investment and enthusiasm on the table by the vendor team. They weren't just there because they were being paid to be there. I think we have a great group of vendors in Northern Michigan who bring enthusiasm and passion to every wedding that they do, but this one in particular they were doing for free, so they're very invested in it going well. And
it was a great team effort. Which is a really wonderful thing when you have a planner like Stacy is that she really keeps people cohesive and keeps things moving. And I don't know if any of you have ever done this. This has happened to me sometimes. As I'll go to I've gone to a couple of ceremonies where they really should have had a planner because I ended up doing things, and I don't mind doing that, if I can. But it's so nice to have a planner
to orchestrate
things. And there's so many little things that happen. And I always tell my couples, don't let yourself, on the day of, if you're planning things on the day of, for sure, you've got to get somebody else to be the point person, because you'll be surprised how many things come up for you, how many little things need to get taken care of. And you don't want the florist coming and saying, oh, the flowers all drooped. What do you want me to do? You want somebody else to be able to do that. So have you noticed, is there any advice that you would give to an officiant? Are you noticing that there's maybe a common, or not common, but let me put it this way. Are there some mistakes that you see officiants in general doing that we don't really need to do, or things that we could do better? Because when you see us from the outside, it's different than, because we're managing a whole set of different things on the inside than you would.
That's a good question. So, and I see it kind of as an audience member, but I also, as a planner, see that process a little bit too. So maybe I'll speak just first of all to the things that officiants are doing well, or that you're doing well. Sure. Yeah.
Start positive.
Thank you for doing the good things. So something I think that you do very well, Crystal, is, that connection that you enjoy making with your couple is what also feeds the content of your ceremony. And so you're very intentional about getting to know your couple so that you can craft a ceremony that's meaningful to them. And I think that's beautiful. So as a person, and this is me as a planner, but any of us as audience members in a ceremony, we're going to there because we love the couple. But we do have to sit through this, 20-minute or half-hour experience, and hopefully it's meaningful. Hopefully it's a meaningful part, and we're not sitting there thinking, well, let's get on to cocktail hour and dancing and stuff like that, So the things that I've seen officiants do well is bring to that experience a way of like personalizing the content, of making it feel like that couple and you're explaining that couple to the audience, and then also just giving weight to what's happening in that moment in the ceremony. So, we do get excited, generally speaking, about going to a party.
Right, yeah.
But the meaning of this party is really is the heart of the ceremony. We're there because two people love each other and they're making a commitment to each other, and then we're going to go celebrate that. And so I think when an officiant is doing their job well, they're helping the audience understand the love that's there and the commitment that's happening, and just making that feel very personal, and maybe making us laugh once in a while, and just engaging the crowd, so that it's meaningful. There was a ceremony that I went to in September this past year, and part of the depth of that ceremony was, the couple who had written vows to each other, and they were excellent communicators, excellent writers, and they exchanged those vows. And for the first time that I have ever noticed, after that ceremony, like we all cried. I cried, and I usually get choked up, but I cried. For this one, there were tears. And after that ceremony, part of my role is like, hey, cocktails are over here, like open bar this way. And usually people are like, all right, here we go, great and enthusiastic response. And this crowd lingered in that space because we had all, it's not because they didn't know where the bar was. I was telling them multiple times, but we had all just experienced this very profound thing together. We're all just kind of processing that.
And was that because the officiant had a really great connection with the couple? And
he did.
Did he know that? Like, was he actually know them, or was he a person who was like I am? Mm-hmm. A lot of times, I'm not connected with them until I do the things I do to connect with them.
Exactly.
But it's never going to be like somebody who's known them their whole life.
Yeah, I mean, I think this gentleman, and I would have to go back to my notes to make sure, but I'm pretty sure that he was a pastor or someone related, someone who had been in their lives for a while. So he knew them as a couple, but then had also been very intentional about crafting the ceremony and, the content of what he was saying and giving them space to express themselves. And he asked for their vows ahead of time so he could give any feedback. He didn't need to, they were beautiful. But so something that moves people. And I don't think, not every couple is looking for that 20 minutes or half an hour to be something that moves us all to tears and kind of stops us. But, some couples are looking for just a more kind of natural, relaxed, that was fun. Yep, we're getting married. Maybe they don't want a deep look into their souls for their guests, and that's okay, totally. But I feel like a good officiant can really pull that out of a couple and like know what they're looking for, know what to communicate. And I think foremost, you're creating an experience for the couple and giving meaning to their commitment to each other. But secondary to that, you've got an audience of people who's watching this, who's witnessing this. And, I, as someone who's been married for 21 years, still like will listen to a good ceremony and just be reminded again of like the value of love and what I have in my husband, and go home and tell him how much I love him at like 2 a.m. after we clean up.
That's a great thing. I mean, I think that if we can inspire people to be able to go home and do that, I mean, because in a way, we have a captive audience. It's just we don't want to bore them.
Exactly.
And it seems to me that there is more and more of a sense of that, we don't have to go through that same ceremony that's been done a million times. There's so much more freedom to, create content and to create some kind of a meaningful reflection of who the couple is. There wasn't when I first started. Because like when I first started, they gave me 3 different ceremonies and I was supposed to pick one of those. Yeah. And it was nice in a way because it was, they were training wheels for me. Sure. And when I got comfortable with that, then I began, all kinds of stuff happened. A lot of different things. A lot of things were developed. But John wanted to know, he says, what percentage of non-professional officiants do you see or know who is one or not?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I feel that and we specifically are in a destination area. So, this may be different for people, for areas where most of the weddings that happen are hometown weddings and there are personal connections already established and that kind of thing. But we're in a destination area. And so I would say the non-professional officiant percentage in my line of work is probably 75% of the officiants that I see are
wow, that's a
some,
lot.
uncle or friend. And I mean, Michigan makes it pretty easy, or the World Wide Web makes it very easy to become officiated. And so, if you've got someone you've got a personal connection, and just want them to do that, then it's easy to do. The question is, can they do it well? That's the real question. So, and the other part of your question, John, do I see or know
who is one or who is not? I think that. So, John, are you talking about, can she identify someone who's professional and someone who's not?
By how good of a job they do. I as a planner,
talked about that before.
Yeah, and I as a planner do know that beforehand, because I've got kind of the rundown of who's who, and I've communicated with that person beforehand, and then I'm at rehearsal with that person as well, so I can kind of gauge how that's going to go. And I would just kind of throw back to what we were chatting a little bit about earlier. It's not always about whether they have the officiant title as much as it can be about how good they are at communicating publicly and in front of a crowd. And being able to connect with people, and also I think be able to draw out the personal anecdotes that, Crystal, you're really good at and very intentional about being able to draw that out and communicate it in a ceremony. So yeah,
thanks, Steve.
You're welcome. Thank you for being that, because it's very important. I think the wedding day is an important thing. It's very meaningful. It's very profound, really, in our course of human experiences. This is a big deal. People spend thousands of dollars to celebrate what happens in that ceremony.
Right. Yeah.
To make that personal, I think is a great skill and worth investing in that part of the experience. So yeah. Hope that answered your question, John.
Is there anything that officiants can do to help make your job easier?
Good question. I work with a lot of them. So, it makes my job easier if the officiant kind of guides the process of what the content of a ceremony is going to be, what the order of it's going to be, kind of work that out with the couple and then send it over to me so I can get the program printed and that kind of thing. But I've certainly worked with a number of couples where the couple and I are working out the order of ceremony, and the couple might even be writing some of the ceremony. So that's I'm totally fine with that.
So you like to have an order of service?
We do if we're printing a program.
Oh yeah,
so,
I know.
Makes us look good. Well, we know what's going on.
It's interesting the different things that I learned, because I never would. I mean, if somebody wants one, I always ask my couples if they're going to need an order of services, if they're going to have a program or whatever. And if they do, then I get it to them. But I didn't know if that would help you. But it's like I keep learning these things, because I remember, gosh, it was probably 3 years ago. It was sort of like a duh moment when a photographer said, after you've pronounced them husband and wife or wife and wife or whatever it is, if you would move out of the way so that your head isn't sticking over them.
But you're short enough, so you can kind of be okay.
Well, that's true.
But
that is true. I'm shrinking daily, but so now I learn how to.
You're just cognizant of that. Yeah, for sure.
Of little things like that.
You did it well for Mari and Tyler's. We saw the video, and I'm like, oh, there she goes.
Yeah. Well, I actually have a little freebie. Although everybody who's watching us right now has taken my course.
Oh,
yeah. So
thanks for coming back and watching.
Yeah,
guys.
Yeah. But I don't know if you guys saw it. John saw it, because I ran it by John to see if you liked it. But it's 7 common mistakes that new officiants make, and one of them is when they kiss, get out of the way.
Get out of the way.
It's just it's just stuff like that.
I don't love.
Oh no, but that's not what I ran by John. That's a different one.
That was free, John. The one that I try to remind people of, new officiants, especially at rehearsal, is like invite people to sit down.
Yep, that's on there too.
Yep. Which, a new officiant, there's a lot going on, and if it's your first time and you're like, oh, I forgot, like there's a lot to keep track of. So I usually will tell parents of the bride, like, if he forgets to tell you to sit down, just sit down. The crowd will follow you. But I've definitely, I definitely have gone like up the side and like told people in the front, oh, go ahead and sit down. Or the pictures are,
You would think that people would figure that out, but I think there's just a sense of like, I'm so afraid of doing something that's out of whatever. Right. And so one of the things that I also do at rehearsals is I will tell the mom that people will follow you. But I've also noticed, like, for for a long time, it was like people would wait for me to tell them to stand. And now sometimes people, as soon as they see her, they stand.
Right.
If it's a, I mean, most of my weddings up here, I don't know about you guys, but most of my weddings are still opposite sex weddings. I do same-sex ceremonies, but they're always very small.
Okay.
Very intimate. Do you do very many same-sex ceremonies?
We have a few coming up this year, actually. Yeah. So they
are big?
They're like in the 80-person range, I guess. So yeah, but that is yeah, they both are. So, but that's kind of also not abnormal here in Northern Michigan either. The 60 to 80 is a pretty sweet spot. So is 120 to 250 though. So
those are the two sides of the ceremonies that get done, or the party and the
I would say ranges. I mean, last year we had a ceremony for 20 people, and then a reception for 80 because brought them to the party. But So, but I also think this is just a bonus prediction. I think that the elopement scene is definitely going to be a growing thing. We're seeing a lot of adventure elopements. So
that fits in with my little weddings everywhere.
It does. I know, you're right on trend. So I've definitely seen that on Instagram and some of the trending blogs and that kind of thing. So I think we'll see more of that in Northern Michigan because we have very adventurous terrain here.
Do you one thing that happened when Stacy invited me to be part of the free wedding giveaway was learning Instagram and learning about some of the Facebooky things. And Stacy is a great teacher. Do you find, is Instagram definitely better? I mean, do you get a lot of business from Instagram or Facebook, or do you get very much business from social media?
Good question. I'm not always sure how people find us, but especially in recent conversations with prospective clients, they're referencing what they see on Instagram. And so whether they find us in a Google search or, through a venue recommendation or vendor recommendation, they're checking us out on Instagram. Maybe on Facebook a little bit too, but Instagram is totally where it's at. Wouldn't you agree?
I'm so stuck on Facebook. It's really hard for me to get on, but every once in a while I get on Instagram and I try to keep up with it, but I'm still trying to set up a lot of things. And so but it's like if I'm on social media, I'm lucky, but I'm on Facebook a lot.
For the record, I've never done a Facebook Live. I have no idea how to do it. And here we are with Crystal, who has brought me into the Facebook Live world. So thanks. Yeah. You're totally techie in my book. What
is the quality of the sound and the picture okay, you guys, or am I like morphing around, or I'm not going to be able to tell until I probably replay it. Okay. Anyway, so one question that I thought of is there anything that you're seeing officiants do in ceremonies that's like getting overdone? Like, for instance, when I first started, the sand ceremony was very unique. And now a lot of people are doing the sand ceremony. And when I talk to couples and I give them a list of a lot of different special ceremonies, they'll say, oh, I've seen that sand ceremony.
Sure, yeah.
And the candle lighting, I'll tell people, don't do the candle lighting if you're outside.
No, exactly. So I feel like it came from the concept of that whole unity candle thing, right? And we're outside. It's hard to get those to light. I mean, I got married inside and had a unity candle. It was hard to get that to light. So you're like, does this mean we won't survive?
Right. I know that's the thing is people will take it as an omen or something.
Right.
Like, no, it's just windy.
Yep. I've seen the sand ceremony done with sand from his beach and her beach and maybe a beach in Mexico or something like that added together. It adds meaning to the sand kind of thing. And to answer your, there's some great twists. I think some great other things out there too. I don't know that I see it overdone. Again, I'm working with destination clients who are often looking for something different. So if they've seen it at a lot of weddings, they usually don't want to do it. Yeah. So we're trying to be a little bit different most of the time with the clients that I'm working with. So yeah.
I love the sand ceremony though. I love the imagery of it. But when somebody brings different sand like that, it's usually all the same color.
Okay. Yeah.
So I ask them if they're going to do that, to still get colored sand and mix it in so that, because that whole thing, I love making something about the unique pattern that's made when because everybody's so unique and so their relationship is unique too. Yeah. So I love the sand ceremony, but Yeah.
I had a couple who had 3 children, I think it was, and they had the kids each have a different color of sand, and then the mom and dad had the sand that were more neutral colors. The kids were more colorful, and so that made fabulousness in the in the dark. We also had one that was this painting thing where the kids like put paint on a canvas.
Ceremony, yeah.
Super cool. Yeah, and the parents did too, and then I think somebody dropped it afterwards, but that's okay. I added to the look of it.
Things happen in life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that one you got to be careful that the one I've only done it once is to keep the paint off of her dress.
Right. Yeah.
That was a trick, and so they made the paint really thick, and so when the paint went on, it sort of went.
Canvas low down.
Yeah, I'm thinking, who's that guy that was always throwing the paint on stuff? Yeah, it wasn't Picasso, but somebody like that. But anyway, it was. I mean, those are just the kind of things that you do them and you see how it goes.
Right. And then you decide if you're ever going to do it again or recommend it again or whatever.
Yeah.
I will say, I think it's interesting, in this area that we're in, we do see people who want to do things differently, make it memorable, and stuff like that. I had a bride last fall, though, who we were talking about vows, right? And whether they were going to write their own vows or do the traditional vows. And I feel like we see a lot of couples write their own vows of kind of I don't even say it's trending. It's very mainstream to write your own vows, here at least. And so she, though, I said it very interestingly. She was like, "Yeah, we're going to do the traditional vows," and I think they were doing a little bit of their own as well. But she wanted to keep that because she said, like, what other time will I have to do that? And just kind of embracing this concept of timelessness that those have, like, when she was thinking about the traditional vows, the fact that they've been exchanged for hundreds of years, whatever, made it feel very like grounded and timeless and meaningful to them. So, I say that because maybe folks out there, you like the candle ceremony or the sand ceremony. It's okay. But I think it's okay to have that. And I think maybe what a good officiant will do is add meaning to that or communicate meaning in a maybe new or different way, but it's still the same.
Yeah.
So.
I have mixed feelings about the traditional vows. I do think that because there's so many, like, even when somebody gets married, in some ways they're plugging into this whole thing of like what that means, and people are always, I try to encourage people to define what it means for them. They don't, if they had bad role models, that doesn't have to happen to them.
Sure.
If they had really good role models, that does have to happen to you. But we get to define our whole thing. How our relationship is going to be. But there is that thing that sometimes people just plug right into all of the tradition. So the traditional vows, I like what you said about that. And one thing that I like too is if someone, like, they will write their own vows and then we do the traditional vows. So it's sort of like an exclamation point on. So there's their own self, and then there is that tradition that they're also engaging.
Right, tapping into that. Yeah. And I think you're right. It's what people find meaning in, and I think that we're currently very aware. I don't know if it's a generational thing or not, but I feel like couples are very aware of who they are in their relationship and who they are as people, and don't usually want to do something that's not meaningful to them. And I say this based on the people that I'm working with, we're not just doing it to do it, we're doing it because it means something. And maybe part of that for me too is that I'm working with couples who've been in their relationship for a while, so they're mature in the relationship.
That's one thing I've noticed is that people are getting, and the statistics are that way too, is that people are getting married later. The 27 to the 32, 33, I don't know what you guys have noticed, but they get married in that range, and they do know themselves better. I do find, though, quite a few people don't know what they want in the ceremony. I don't find that I don't talk to a lot of brides who are like, I've been dreaming about this my whole life. I see that on what's that one about the brides? Say Yes to the Dress. I watch
sure,
it all the
yeah.
time. Those
We
brides
do
have
dream
been
about the
planning it. It
dress.
seems like all those
Yeah.
ones have been planning it forever since they're a kid. But I don't get those kinds of people.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I think, I see the planning process very much the same way, where
Oh, look at that.
people, thanks for all the engagement, guys.
Wow.
Where people come to me and they want to have a great party. They want to throw a beautiful party in a beautiful place that means something to them. And so the conversation of how that's going to look is a conversation. It's a journey. We kind of talk through that, like, oh yeah, well, so we want this experience. How are we going to actually make this experience meaningful or beautiful in your table settings and in your music and in your ceremony and that kind of thing? It's definitely a conversation, which I love about it, because it evolves and we discover things, I think, along the way about the couple, about ourselves, and about how blue and yellow work together.
Yeah.
Lavender.
A little advice there.
And the meaning of escort card and when peonies are in season and all the things that you may never ever need to know again in your life, but you will for your wedding. You'll learn it all. It's great. So
do you get many referrals from officiants, or is there a vendor?
They usually come to me. They usually get me first, I would say.
What order? I mean, is it you first, then the venue, then what?
Yeah, sometimes it is. And again, Northern Michigan, usually people are coming here from other places. They don't know the area super well. And so sometimes they're hiring us to help them find a venue. Sometimes they're talking to us at the same time that they're researching venues. So sometimes that happens simultaneously. Often it happens that we are the next step after the venue. So venue recommendation, we are on lists of venues. So thank you, venues who do that for us. Typically that's how it is. And then there's a group of folks who are highly capable. Good job, guys. You're like, we're going to plan this whole thing. We're fine. And then they get partway down the road and they have such great ideas. They realize they need somebody to make that happen. We tend to. So then, those couples do come to us with officiants and all the vendors.
What happened?
So,
wait, I gotta get this. Stay on this page. Don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to look at the
technical difficulties.
What kind of things do you look for? I mean, we kind of talked about this before, but if you're going to recommend an officiant to somebody, what are the kind of things that you try to match up between the couple? And I mean, you must know a lot of officiants.
I know a fair number of officiants. That's a really good question, though. Actually, a venue reached out to me today about who we like to use as officiants, and the list was fairly short. But and you were on it, so it makes but when I specifically recommend officiants, it's my name on the line as well. So I want to make myself look good as well as take care of my clients. Sure. But I'm looking for someone who can connect with my couple enough to make that ceremony meaningful, and someone who can communicate in a way that makes the experience meaningful for the people who are watching, for the audience. So do you ever find out, like, if your couple is more religiously oriented, and then do you know more officiants who really aren't? Because I don't know I never get to see anybody. I mean, I'm in a lot of Facebook groups where there are other officiants and stuff like that. And there are a couple where people are very religiously oriented, and then there's ones where anything goes kind of thing. But do you try to match that up, or do you think that most officiants are willing, like, because I've got a background in religion too, I can do either. You're a good fit I'm for more comfortable not being real overtly religious. Exactly. Yep. And to some couples that's very important. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So the when that is important, when faith is important, then there's definitely, we work with Jewish couples and with Christian couples. Usually I would say the majority of who we're working with are maybe spiritual, but that's not a specific religious emphasis in their ceremony. Not always what they're looking for, but for the ones where faith is important, definitely there are some local resources local officiants who, do a wonderful job.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Do you notice that there's a lot of couples who have come from a religious background, but then they will say, we're not religious, and yet they want to tie things in with their parents because their
Oh, for sure.
parents might be more.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
find that a lot, or?
I don't know if it's a strong discussion. I think actually that my experience with Jewish weddings is a really good example. In Denver, I worked for a planner who was Jewish, and so we worked with a lot of Jewish clients, which was awesome. Jewish traditions are really fun. And so very, some of those were very Orthodox, kind of experiences. And then very often I feel like they were, hey, we're Jewish. And so my next question is, all right, how much of that are we incorporating? Because there are so many, traditional ceremonies, or are we Jewish, so we're going to stomp on a glass and get married under a huppah, that level of, because there's meaning in that for sure. Or, and then there's also like Hebrew songs and 7 circles, and it gets much more involved in that. And so the Jewish faith is a beautiful, they do their ceremonies beautifully, very visually and very meaningfully. I think they have, elements of that in their ceremony. So it's fun to bring some of that in, and you can do it easily without it being necessarily with words. It's more of a stomping on glass and having a beautiful
and engaging those traditions too.
Yep, which is lovely.
Have you noticed a good length for a ceremony? I mean, are ceremonies usually
20 minutes?
20 minutes, yeah.
15 is fine too.
Yeah.
Usually, for the most part, the ones up here that we have done are the 20 minutes. We take 10 minutes or so to get everybody lined up and down the aisle, and then 20-minute ceremony, so 30. I say that's the majority, but we've also done a number of Catholic ceremonies, and that's a good hour-long experience. So, and those are beautiful too. So I wouldn't say there's like magic formula this much, but if you're going to make it long, make it interesting, and give it, like the Catholic ceremony is a lovely example where there are songs, and there's songs that people sing together, and there's communion sometimes when they're, incorporating that in.
Yeah.
And so kneeling and standing, and, there's action going on there too.
And do you have stuff to make that happen? Like if you're getting married outside? Or is that only inside?
Yeah.
Because a lot of priests
Correct.
can't do ceremonies outside of the church. Isn't
exactly.
that? Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
So then all that kneeling stuff is there.
They got the kneelers right there.
Yeah.
That's great.
Prostrate myself.
Done. Yeah. And the priests tend to just kind of be the directors of that. So, it's fascinating, I think, to bring that background into a ceremony, especially when it's meaningful to a couple, right? So to some couples, it's very meaningful still in life. And to some couples, it's like part of who they are, from their history or family history or whatever, where they're coming from that way. They want to incorporate it in that sense. So it's love. I mean, there's such dynamics, I think, in creating an interesting and fun ceremony. So yeah, and a good program will be a great guide for all of that, especially like the Jewish and the Catholic ones, where you may be there for a while and things are happening, to people not of that faith that they don't understand. You give them a good, beautiful program with descriptions and pictures, and it's good.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Do you find people wanting to acknowledge those who can't be there anymore, or is that a big part of most ceremonies that you've seen? I know I'm kind of generalizing, like.
Yes. Usually people have passed on who can't be there, right? Is who we're acknowledging. And yeah, sometimes that happens in the, an acknowledgement from the officiant, just kind of, saying that. Usually there's a program, that we can say at the bottom, like we miss these people, or here in spirit, or that kind of thing. And then sometimes we're doing that visually as well. And I've seen that done beautifully.
Like how the chair with the rose on it, or something during the reception, or
the chair with just something that was meaningful to that person. Last year, and sometimes there's a whole table kind of during cocktail hour, right, where there's pictures of people who have passed on, and candles, and a lovely little display there. We last year did a couple of them actually, and I think this was the bride's idea at the time. Don't really remember, but there was a tree at the back of their ceremony spot, and we we brought in 7 lanterns. There were 7 people we wanted to acknowledge, and we brought in 7 lanterns and hung them from the tree. Didn't say anything like on the tree. You know, it said something in the program, but nothing on the tree. And the officiant mentioned something, but it was decorative. There were little candles in there. In the evening, when people came back by the tree, the candles were glowing, and
I love that.
it was lovely.
Fabulous.
It was lovely, and it was decorative.
Wow.
It was meaningful without casting this kind of somber feeling on things. And you know, there's so much emotion that happens in a day. It's not a bad thing to be like, man, we wish this person was here. You know,
right? Yeah, because that can get a little emotional sometimes, especially like with
Absolutely.
a parent or a,
oh my gosh,
you know,
yeah.
And it depends on how much. It doesn't always. So I was going to say sometimes it depends on how long ago that person passed, but that's not true. I mean,
yeah, not always. Especially, gosh, if there's a dad, especially a bride, you know, dad isn't there for that day. Shoot, everybody cries for that. You know, there's so many moments where he would be there. He'd be walking you down the aisle. He'd be doing a first dance with you, and he'd be giving a speech. And you know, gosh, and it's very natural that be acknowledged, that his absence be acknowledged. You know, and I'll cry in those moments too.
One of the things that I started to do, and I got this from a Facebook group, is instead of just doing their names, is I ask, how did that person affect your life? What did you learn? What was a life lesson that you learned from that person? And then did they know your spouse? And if they did, what did they think of him or her? And if they didn't, what would they have thought of them? And I have gotten it's no matter what they tell me, people love to talk about the people that they love. And they bring up, you know, good stories, but it also is one of those things that helps me and the couple to connect, because now I know something about how they were loved and how they were cared for by this other person that can't be there. And
and it's those kind of questions that you're willing to ask and take the time to ask really help a couple reflect on, you know, what they're doing. I think that the questions of like, how do you want your ceremony to look, is very open-ended, but you guide them through that process, and it really, I think is a reflective thing. It helps them kind of think through, what are we doing and what do we want it to look like in front of people, and you know, good. It's good. What I'm trying to say there is good. Thanks for asking this question.
If you guys, I've got a couple more questions to ask Stephanie, but if you guys have any questions that you want to, Stacy.
I answered to that too.
People call me Charlotte all the time. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. But if you guys have any questions, you know, type them in, and then I'll be glad to ask her. Because
Rosalind said we're both great. Thanks, Rosalind. We appreciate you.
We do.
This is fun.
I like it. Everybody in here is great. Let me see. Is there anything that you wish officiants would do that they don't do?
There's no glaring thing that I wish officiants would do that they don't do. Just sometimes, you know, and like we kind of mentioned before, they forget to step out of the way, or they forget to have people sit down. I will say, biggest killjoy of a rehearsal is an officiant who talks through everything word for word. None of us really want to hear it that day. We want to hear it the next day. So a 20-minute rehearsal goes into an hour, sometimes an hour and a half. I've seen that go, and there's, you know, as a planner, I try to help direct that, make that not happen, especially though for officiants who have not done it before and are not sure how that's supposed to go, or they're just very thorough and they want, like, it's usually with great intent, they want it to go very well and have it be fully rehearsed and everybody's comfortable with it. We all lose interest after 20 minutes, so keep it I like the high points and then move on.
Do you think that do you think it's a good idea for an officiant to be at a rehearsal? Or does it depend?
It depends. Yes, it's a lovely idea for an officiant to be there when that doesn't happen, because it doesn't always. In my role, then I just, you know, the officiant and I communicate about what, you know, what are some key points for standing and sitting in order of service, and then I can just walk people through that. So very often I have done rehearsals without the officiant present. I'm a planner, so for those of you who don't have a planner, having your officiant present is very useful. Or at least someone who's communicated with the officiant to talk about.
Asked a question up a little. Judy asked a question. I've been seeing that couples face the crowd and the officiant standing to the side. Do you see that much?
I personally don't. I have seen it one time maybe, and I think it was called a modern approach. And it's nice. Most often I personally see, and I direct it, so that's probably why, but most often I see the officiant facing the crowd and the couple facing each other in front of the officiant. I like the concept of that personally because they're saying vows to each other. So it feels very much like they're making that commitment to each other before, people. I like that they're facing each other so people get kind of the side profile, not just the back of the dress look there. But that said, I mean, the one time, I think it really was only one time that I saw it, okay, maybe twice, shows up nice in pictures. And
what, with their back? Oh, from the side?
For the couple facing the crowd, and then I think the concept behind that, from what I understand, is like that the people are there to see the couple, and now they see the couple, and the couple sees them and all of their witnesses, and that's lovely. I think the one time that we saw it, and again, I think it actually has been two times, but one time that we saw it, the officiant was talking, but he was like not the focal point, and I think that confused people a little bit. They're like, where should we be looking? And the couple too, like, where should we be looking? So it felt a little bit awkward, but not to say it's wrong. I'm quite open to different ways of doing things. So yeah.
You know what I would like to see at weddings set up is, instead of it being the chairs being like this in rows, I'd like to see them to the side, so that it's not a circle, but they're at an angle, because then the guests can see each other. And it helps to create more of because we used to do that in church.
Sure,
churches, they used to always have, the churches that I was in, we got rid of the stationary pews because there's more of a community feeling that's created when you have stuff at an angle, and people, even if it's just seeing the side, where it's harder to do that when you're just in straight rows.
Right. Yeah.
We did it. I don't see that very often.
I'm not great at setting up chairs in a semicircle, so it was really hard for me. But
get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We love the concept. I mean, we were talking about how cool that was going to be, because it was around a chuppah, and so I think we had like 4 different sections.
Oh yeah, that would be different too.
Different angles. Very different. Yeah. Very interesting. When I saw the pictures, then it's like, oh, there's like always people in the pictures. So to me, that's a little bit different when I think about it. And then also the angle of, like, in the way that we had set it up was like, some people got the front and side views or whatever. The officiant is like, where it's different. It does feel very communal.
Judy, do you like that idea of being to the side? Have you done anything where you were on the side? I just saw that. I've done one, and it's uncomfortable for me. But
it's a little different.
But it's different. But I think that's just it. Is that it's just different. Probably if I had started and been trained to do it that way, it would be the way I would do it.
Yeah.
But there's one venue that we have that it's very uncomfortable for me. Do you ever go to the Homestead? Are you ever out there?
We will be out there for the first time this year, actually. Yeah.
I love the Homestead, and it's at not Cafe Noka. That's the other one. It's Camp Firefly.
Yep.
Because it's just set up so different.
Interesting.
Because all the guests are on the other side of the pond.
Okay.
And then the wedding party is on the other side of the pond. And then they enter from the side, and then they come down the back, and then how do you sit? And does the officiant up on the and everybody's different. Everybody's different what they want. But anyway, that's you guys don't know about that place.
I do think, Judy, thinking again about like this concept of couple facing and officiant to the side, it can still be engaging. I guess I did in the one that we saw that, the officiant was engaging with the crowd by moving, that we're just like all like, yeah, where are we supposed to look here? but also, I mean, he did, make the effort to be engaging in the crowd and kind of walking around. So trying to make it feel, I think, more personal and more, more modern, for sure. Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed this. I just found a book that I really like, and it's about a guy's name. I think it's Christopher Shelley. And it's called Best Ceremony Ever, and it was a really good ceremony book. But I saw some of his videos, and he what it did for me was it just made me see that everybody has their own style.
Yeah.
And
Right,
even
right.
when you communicate with it, seeing it is a whole lot different, because I almost thought this guy was going to walk on water. I mean, I thought he was fabulous. And
Wow.
then, and not that he wasn't, but he was just so different. And watching the dynamic with him, and then seeing how people reacted, and some of the stuff that he said was so funny. I just cracked up. Yeah, I had actually posted it in the group that all you guys are in. You know, that thing about the multiple origami. That was, I'll have to tell you, that was really funny.
Okay.
But sometimes it looked like to me, he totally told the couple's love story. That was just about all he did. And it went on for a long time. And it felt to me like the couple was a little bit like, let's get on with this. Do you ever find that sometimes it just seems like,
oh, sure,
there's too much?
Yeah, filling in too much. Before I dive into that, I wanted to acknowledge John's comment. I don't know if Judy
can you read that from where you are? I can't read it.
Yes. So John brought up the very good point of like the way that a couple stands, he bases on what they're comfortable with, and not every couple is comfortable facing the crowd. We definitely agree with that, John. I've seen, like, you know, in a ceremony where the officiant's like, now couple, like, turn to your guests and see all these people who are here today to support you. And I think that's lovely. But they turn and look at their guests and smile, and then they're like back to each other. And I think that's super true, a great observation, where you're like, most couples, I feel like, are kind of nervous. Like, everybody's watching them. Not every couple likes to be watched or the center of attention. And so there's like some consolation, and just, you know, very often I'll have the couple hold hands through that, like as the officiant's talking, and it's a very like calming, grounding thing. And I think that ties into what you're saying too, like, do we ever want the officiant to just get on with it? Yeah, especially in Northern Michigan when it's cold out and the bride's like freezing up there, the guys are, or it's hot and the guys are sweating, you know, in their in their suits and stuff. So yeah, I think a good officiant can gauge the crowd a little bit and craft their ceremony around that a little bit too. But yeah.
Because I like to try and make sure that it's about the couple. But like this person that I'm talking about, he was very much the center of the ceremony. I mean, it was about him and how he was presenting himself. And I think that there's something for me to learn from that, because I don't want to be like a shrinking violet, but I do try to stay back, and he was really out front. So I'm gonna see about kind of balancing that a little bit.
And I think again, I'm probably way overthinking and over talking this, but thanks for getting us started on it, Judy. This idea of like the couple facing the crowd and the officiant being to the side. And if you've got an officiant to the side who's talking, if you're doing that kind of setup during the monologue of the officiant, then people's attention tends to be directed away from the couple who's facing the crowd, looking over at the officiant. And so you're losing a little bit of visual time, maybe potentially losing some visual time of the couple because you're not looking at them. But anyway, I'm probably overthinking it. Judy, if you're doing it that way, good job.
Well, she said she made a couple more comments. I wish that this would, because I thought the feed would. I did this before. I thought the feed would just go.
John's thrown just some great comments out there. Most brides want to show off the back of their dress and their hair.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep.
He's got it.
You know it, John.
Everybody on here has been doing weddings for a long time.
Yo, we're talking to the pros. Really interesting. We should be getting you over here.
Yeah. Well, Judy actually lives in St. Ignace.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Judy.
John's in Oklahoma and Rosalind's in Virginia.
Oh wow. Hey, this is very okay. Yeah. So some of the things that I think about for officiating might not apply in other states. The getting ordained online, I don't know how that works in some of those other states, but Colorado.
I don't know if Jackie is here, but Jackie is just got ordained, and she's taking my course right now, and she's going to help me. But Jackie is very different. Jackie, are you still here? I don't think she is.
Jackie is different.
But Jackie has purple hair.
Oh, fun.
And tats. And she's a great mom.
Yeah.
And she's going to be the badass
officiant. Yes, she is.
so that's, she must still be here.
Cool, Jackie.
So, so we're going to do that. Well, nice. Let me see. Is there anything else? Do you want to leave us with any? Oh, do you have a favorite blog or podcast that's a wedding oriented that you listen to?
I did see that question, and I thought about it, and I thought the best answer would be to tell you to find one quick and that I'll start following. So I have one to say, but I don't actually. But I think that this answer is useful. I do not always make time in my life to read blogs or to listen to podcasts. Sometimes I do, and it's very useful. So, but currently I don't. I just hop on Instagram very often though. And so my design inspiration and kind of knowledge of what's trending out there, especially from a design perspective, it comes from Instagram. And although I can be slightly embarrassed to say I don't listen to the podcasts or blogs, I think that's very true in our culture, though. There's lots of people who listen to podcasts and do the blogs, but Instagram is a very big source of inspiration. And so I think I'm still sort of relevant.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
But in my off
season,
I
listen to.
hope to listen to more. Yeah,
I've got a list.
But
if you don't listen to them, it doesn't matter.
Like, life is
whatever you're doing works, Stacy. You know,
Instagram inspired, and honestly, client inspired. Very much client inspired. So, yeah,
that's very cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, okay. Let me look and see if anybody has.
And Judy, I see you don't do the other kind of officiating, so we're on the same page there.
Okay, so if you guys don't have any questions, I think that we've talked about some really good things.
Thank you guys for hanging with us for so long.
Yeah.
We weren't sure anybody would.
Yeah,
it's great.
And there's going to be people on the replay and stuff like that too. So if you're listening to the replay, then go ahead and post your questions, and I will. I'll get them over to Stacy, and you can see Stacy. Oh, you know what I forgot to bring up? Maybe I've got it here real quick. I will post. I will post how you can find Stacy's. Whoops, okay. I'm going to post that later because I obviously forgot to put that up.
No problem.
So
thanks for letting me be found
at
here.
Juniper and Lace Events is how you find her on Facebook, and is it the same on Instagram?
Yes, Instagram, Juniper and Lace Events. The last word in there. Where today, Crystal's beautiful face is standing up on top of the Lake Lena lookout spot. So our first wedding together.
Famous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was that one. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. You can see the first time Stacy and I worked together, and actually
awesome.
We took a selfie, and that was one of the first selfies I ever took. It was like Stacy was running around doing stuff. I'm like, come here, and then like this. So anyway, thank you very much for coming. She came over to my house, so thank you for coming over.
Then I didn't have to clean mine, so.
Well, not that I clean mine, but this is different back here. So thank you guys. Thanks for for being here. Thank you for being the great and wonderful officiants that you are, and you know what? We can do this again.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I'm in.
Okay. All right. So thanks, you guys. We'll see you. Have a great weekend. Love you guys. Bye. Oops, I gotta do this one too.
Almost bye.